He's not happy. And if you read between the lines, I mean, he's effectively saying at the top of that interview there wasn't really much in it, and it was a penalty that shouldn't have been given that ended up winning the game for them. If you're a Tottenham fan sitting at home listening to that reaction from your manager after that performance, what are you feeling?
Yeah, but look, you have to remember, Jake, like, players and managers, you have a different job than just always pleasing the fans, right? And, you know, I'm sure if he was stepping away from football, he might have a different answer. But he's looking at his team that's very fragile at the minute and lacking confidence. And as a manager, it's his job to piece all that together, maintain their confidence with the game that's coming up on Sunday. Yeah. So sometimes, I mean, you almost have to lie. You know, the reality is, you know, the chances weren't there for Chelsea, but they dominated the whole game and probably should have scored 2 or 3 more quite easily. We know that. But that's not Jose's job. Jose's job now is to try and drag his team off the floor because he knows this is a moment where they're in a tough spot. They're struggling. So he can't be doubling down on that and because we're going to do that anyway. That's what we do as pundits and the fans are going to do it. Everyone's going to double down on how bad Tottenham have been. So as a manager, it's his job to protect them and then try and guide them back to, you know, what they were doing in the earlier stages of the season.
JJ, like, there's only Kane and Reguilon that's injured. He's making it sound like there's, or perceiving that there's sort of 5, 6, 7, 8, 13 regulars that's injured. We're really vulnerable at the minute. We've got to try and get through this.
Yeah. If you went through the numbers of, like, creativity at Tottenham and kind of like who creates the goals, you know, we all know that it's going to be Son, Kane, Kane, Son, Son, Kane, Kane, Son. And you have took a link out of that team that you just can't, that obviously, which is partly his fault because he's been so heavily reliant on one source within the team. And you take it out, and it's been quite clear over the last couple of games that they can't survive from an attacking point of view. Son, I didn't even see Son today. You know, we was having a conversation the other day, does Son get into Liverpool's front 3? Over the last 3 games, you're going, well, not a chance. No, not as an individual performance. Without Kane, no, you don't get anywhere near it. With Kane, he's a world beater. So he's finding it difficult now to obviously find the solutions creatively to get this team back playing the way that, you know, he wants them to play.
But I just hope that his conversation and the way he talks to the team is very different to what I just saw there.
Yeah.
Because that was an excuses kind of filled interview more than anything. And I hope, like you say, I understand as a manager coming out and dressing down your players in public maybe isn't the way to do it in today's game. But I just really do hope that them players are getting a message that's very different to that interview. And listen, we can talk about Son and we can talk about Kane, Son not performing today because Kane's not there. But that doesn't get away from the fact that there did not seem to be any game plan, like even getting out from the back. There's no movement. JJ done a bit at half-time. There's no game plan. There's no like direction with this team. I don't see it. I just see people playing off the cuff, hoping to get it to Ndombele at the moment, who's going to do something off the cuff to get Son in. If that happens, Son had 1 shot in the whole game. And that was in the 89th minute.
And we can focus on individual players and their own qualities. But, you know, let's take Brighton as a really good example, where I know you work as a coach with the youngsters, and we'll talk about them later in the show. But if you take the Brighton and the Tottenham squads, you would argue that Tottenham have more quality than Brighton in terms of individual players.
That's a
right?
fact.
Yeah.
So then you watch Brighton play and you see the plan and you know what they're trying to do. And sometimes it doesn't happen, but you see the progression. That's the problem, I think, that football fans have, is they want to be able to identify with their team and go on the journey with them.
We sit here as pundits and we're looking for patterns of play to create some sort of content at half-time or full-time to analyse the game. I can't see any positive patterns within that Spurs team, especially in the first half. Well, it must be down to either the players, like he said, maybe not taking on the instructions and implementing it in the game, or they're not coaching the team to be able to play and have an idea to get out of certain situations. Because you can look at the way certain teams play in this league. You're talking about Brighton. You can see that they're playing sometimes through memory, through repetition, what they've done on the training pitch. I don't see that with this Spurs team.
Over the last couple of games, they've been quite lost, and that's why you've seen a different performance in the second half. I think against Brighton, they are a team that are playing with fear, and I think Jose doesn't trust them defensively at all. So they're always contained. You don't have that freedom as a player, I don't think, in this team at the minute, to go into dangerous areas of the park and get the ball and receive the ball on the half turn and nick ones round the corner into the forwards. And they don't have that freedom at the minute. And then it gets to a point where in the second half he goes, well, that was horrendous. I need to do something. And he either changes personnel or he goes, just try and do something.
But JJ, they did a few weeks ago when they're top of the league.
No, but they had a way of playing then, to be fair to them. They had a way of playing at that point, which was, by all accounts, a lot of people didn't enjoy watching it, but it was very defensive, players behind the ball and catching teams out on the counter-attack. And that Liverpool game, that's why it was so big, because when those chances were missed in that Liverpool game, it's flipped the season on its head. You know, these players have completely lost their confidence from that moment because maybe, you know, all of a sudden...
How can you be so fragile for one game, one instance to actually change the whole mentality and shape of a season?
I think
that is crazy fragility.
No, look, it's not just that moment. There was another game after that. Then they went to Wolves, I think, and it was the game where they went ahead and then they drop off and then
Against Wolves, yeah.
they concede late. Leicester at home. You know, there's many of those types of moments where all of a sudden he's realising this defence is nowhere near good enough. And it's like, instead of going free, go and play, let's be more expressive and expansive. He goes like that and goes, right, everyone get back here and just, you know, try and defend. And if we can catch teams out with our world-class players like Kane and Son, we do.
Even when they play when they were doing well, when they was catching teams on the counter-attack, you can't sustain that. You can't be a top team at the top of the league. We can go back to someone like Leicester and go, well, they've done it throughout the season. But they were drilled. They knew what they was doing. You know, you can't tell me that with Jose playing that constraint football and then going up to Kane, into Son, it still seemed off the cuff.
It wasn't going to win the league. It wasn't going to win the league, but we have to all sit here and go, we've probably all sat in these seats at one point and gone, yeah, it's a great style of play. You know, against City when they were doing it and against other teams when they played against Arsenal, we've all sat here and gone, yeah, teams know what's coming, but they can't stop it. So they had something. How they've lost it is what he's got to figure out.